picture this. You've just walked through the front door after, one of those days.
Oh, yeah, we all know those days.
Right. The kind of day where your inbox was an absolute disaster, traffic was a nightmare, and your brain feels like a browser with, 50 tabs open.
And like half of them are totally frozen.
Exactly. So you drop your keys on the counter, you walk over to the couch, you finally sit down, and you just let out this massive, heavy exhale.
Yeah.
Your shoulders drop.
Yeah.
And then before you can even say a word, before you even fully process that you're finally home, a paw gently lands on your hand.
It is such a specific, universal moment for anyone who shares their life with a dog. You don't even have to look down.
No, you really don't.
You just feel that warm, slightly heavy weight resting on your arm or your knee, and it just kind of grounds you in that exact second.
But usually when that happens, we have this immediate, almost reflexive assumption. We're just like, okay, what do you want?
Right, like what's the catch?
Yeah. We assume the dog is working an angle. We think they're begging for a walk, or, they know exactly where the treat jar is, or they just want to scratch behind the ears.
And to be fair, they are brilliant opportunists. If there's a chance for a snack, they will absolutely take it.
Look, sometimes they absolutely are just hustling us for a piece of cheese. I get that. But reading through the stack of research notes you shared with us for today's deep dive, a collection labeled simply "Van Bun Dun."
Which roughly translates to pasted text, yeah.
Right, so reading through this pasted text, you realize how much we're actually missing in these moments.
We really are.
The mission today is to unpack the hidden language, the surprising biology, and the massive evolutionary history behind this one simple gesture. We are going to see that this touch, that resting paw on your arm, is a profound form of communication.
It really is so much more than just asking for a snack.
Right.
To understand what that paw means today on your couch, in your living room, we have to kind of rewind the clock. We need to look at where this physical vocabulary starts in a dog's life.
So we're taking the adult dog's gesture and tracing it all the way back to its developmental roots. Right?
Exactly, back to the whelping box.
Yeah.
Because a dog doesn't just wake up at 3 years old and decide to start putting its foot on a human.
Yeah, I was reading the sections on early development in the notes, and it's actually fascinating how sensory-deprived puppies are at birth. Like, they enter the world completely blind and completely deaf.
They do. Their entire reality is just tactile and thermal. It is all about touch and warmth. So one of their very first instinctive behaviors is to knead their mother.
Oh, like when they use those tiny paws to press and push rhythmically against her belly?
Yeah, exactly that. It stimulates milk flow to keep them alive, obviously, but it also creates this physical closeness.
Right.
It provides them with absolute comfort, warmth, and a real sense of security in a world they can't even see or hear yet.
So the pawing motion is literally hardwired into them as a mechanism for survival and comfort from day one.
It is. It's tied directly to their very first experiences of safety.
Okay, but how does that translate to them putting a paw on us years later?
Well, as they grow, their eyes open, their ears open, and their brains start processing the world differently. And watch what happens during this transition. They move from purely instinctual behavior like needing for milk to learned behavior.
So they start to figure out a very simple cause and effect relationship.
Exactly. They learn that extending a paw and touching a human gets a response.
This maps so perfectly onto how human toddlers develop.
Oh, really? How so?
Well, if you think about a baby, they start out with these really basic survival instincts, right? They cry because they are hungry or cold. But as they become toddlers, they learn to self-soothe and they learn to reach out.
Right, they start interacting more intentionally.
Yeah, like they figure out that if they walk up and tug on their parent's pant leg, the parent looks down, stops what they're doing, and pays attention to them.
That's a great comparison.
What starts as a basic survival or attention instinct evolves into this incredibly complex emotional vocabulary.
Yeah, the toddler pulling the pant leg and the dog offering the paw are both utilizing learned physical contact to bridge a communication gap.
Makes total sense.
And as the dog matures, this gesture gets highly refined. The research notes point out that in canine body language, a paw placed on you isn't just a generic touch.
Right, it's not all the same.
No, a soft paw one that is just gently resting, not scratching or demanding, is a highly specific, very subtle social signal.
So you really have to distinguish between like the frantic digging at your arm because a tennis ball rolled under the couch.
And this very specific, relaxed placement of the limb.
Yeah, the tension in the muscle actually changes the meaning of the word they're saying.
The muscle tension changes everything. A soft paw translates in dog language to a very clear message. It says, I'm here, I'm with you.
Wow. I'm here. I'm with you.
Yeah. It is an affirmation of presence and solidarity.
Okay, if the gesture translates to that level of solidarity, we have to look at what prompts the dog to offer it at a specific moment. Like we established at the start, it always seems to happen right when you sit down and let out that heavy sigh.
Right,
They
right.
seem to be reading our emotional state.
They absolutely are. The source material highlights some incredible studies focusing on canine empathy, actually proving that dogs respond deeply and actively to human emotions.
So I was reading the study in the source material about the crying strangers, and my first instinct was to be a little skeptical,
Yeah.
honestly,
A lot of people are skeptical at first.
because the researchers wanted to know how dogs react to human crying, right? So they put dogs in a room with people they had never met,
Complete strangers.
complete strangers.
Yeah.
And some people hummed a weird tune, some talked normally, and others actively pretended to cry. And the dogs overwhelmingly approached the crying strangers.
They did.
But my immediate pushback was, are we absolutely sure they understand our emotional distress? Or are they just, investigating a weird, high-pitched noise we make when we cry?
Like they're just confused by it.
Yeah, like what is that sound? Is it a squeaky toy? Is it a wounded bird in the living room?
And that is the exact variable the researchers had to control for, which is why the humming group was so important.
Oh, right, because humming is also a weird noise.
Exactly. If the dogs were just curious about a novel or strange noise, you would expect them to approach the people who were humming a strange tune just as often. Or at the very least, you would expect them to approach with alert, investigative body language.
Right, like think about a dog investigating a weird sound, ears pricked forward, sniffing intently, maybe a little tense, ready to jump back.
They would be in discovery mode, not comfort mode.
Right.
But they largely ignored the strange humming. They specifically targeted the crying individuals, and their body language was entirely different from a dog investigating a noise. It was submissive, gentle, and geared entirely toward offering comfort. Their ears were back, their tails were low or wagging softly, and they were initiating physical contact to soothe someone they didn't even know.
That is wild.
They would nuzzle or they would offer that soft paw. It wasn't curiosity, it was a targeted, empathetic response.
Recognizing distress in an entirely different species and having the immediate instinct to try and fix it with gentle touch is just remarkable.
It really is.
The notes also mention a second study that looked at how dogs react to their own humans. They found that dogs reacted significantly faster when their own owners were in distress compared to when their owners were just calling their names normally.
They show a highly elevated sensitivity to our specific feelings. Like if you're listening to this right now and your dog is asleep in the other room, they are still passively tuned into your emotional frequency.
They're always listening.
Yeah. And when that frequency shifts into distress, they act.
Okay, so we've established the behavioral side, like we know they want to comfort us, but the mechanics of how that comfort actually works inside our bodies is where the source material gets incredibly detailed.
Oh, the biology is fascinating.
Yeah, it's not just a nice placebo effect thought. There's an actual biological feedback loop happening the exact second that paw lands on your arm.
And the mechanism here is just so elegant. The source material points out that gentle, sustained touch, exactly like a paw resting quietly on your skin, activates very specific nerve fibers in your body called C-tactile afferents.
Okay, so C-tactile afferents, these aren't your regular touch receptors, right?
Yeah, not at all.
Like if you touch a hot stove or grab an ice cube, your body uses a different set of nerves entirely.
Right. For things like sharp pain or extreme temperature, your body uses A-delta fibers. Those fibers are designed for speed.
They send an emergency signal straight to your brain.
Exactly. Straight to your somatosensory cortex, which is the logic and spatial part of your brain, so you can instantly map where the pain is and pull your hand away.
Right, that makes sense.
But C-tactile afferents are completely different. They are a specialized, unmyelinated network of nerve fibers that are specifically tuned to respond only to slow, gentle, warm stroking or resting pressure.
And because they're tuned differently, they route the information to a completely different part of the brain, right?
Yeah, they bypass the logic and sensory mapping centers almost entirely. These specific fibers have a direct highway to the emotional processing centers of your brain, like the insular cortex and the amygdala.
So they bypass the logic center because gentle pressure is essentially evolutionary proof of safety.
That's exactly it.
Unlike a sharp pain that demands an immediate, calculated reaction, A soft touch doesn't require you to think. It routes directly to the amygdala to actively shut down your fight-or-flight response.
Yes. So when that paw rests on you, this physical contact sends a direct biological signal to your brain that says you are safe.
Wow.
It cuts right past your conscious thoughts about your terrible day at work, your unread emails, or the traffic jam, and speaks directly to your nervous system.
Think of it like a biological Wi-Fi connection.
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah, like, when you have two devices and you want them to sync up, so you initiate a handshake protocol between them.
Right.
By simply making that sustained physical contact, the dog is initiating a handshake with your nervous system.
Mm.
They are syncing up with your biological network.
It really is a biological syncing, driven entirely by the release of hormones, the most prominent one, of course, being oxytocin.
Ah, the famous love hormone.
Yeah.
That always gets brought up when we talk about human connection.
Right. Oxytocin is the hormone responsible for trust, connection, and maternal bonding. And research shows that this gentle touch from a dog causes a massive spike in oxytocin levels in the human bloodstream.
It just floods your system.
It forces your heart rate to slow down. It actively lowers the levels of cortisol, which is your primary stress hormone circulating in your body.
But here is the most critical part of this entire limp, at least to me.
Mm.
It's not a one-way street.
No, it's not.
The oxytocin spikes in you, lowering your stress, but it also spikes in the dog. The syncing goes both ways.
They are getting the exact same chemical reward. The dog initiates the touch to comfort you, and by doing so, their own body gets flooded with the hormone that makes them feel safe, relaxed, and connected.
That is just incredible.
It is a perfectly closed loop of mutual benefit. They soothe you, and in the process of soothing you, they soothe themselves.
And, you don't just randomly get a cross-species connection that perfectly aligns both of our hormonal systems.
Definitely not.
If we zoom out from the immediate chemical reaction happening on your couch, we are looking at the grand scale of history. We're looking at an evolutionary long game that created this exact physical mechanism.
We really have to marvel at the timeline we are talking about here. I mean, dogs and humans have been living side by side for tens of thousands of years.
A huge amount of time.
And during that immense span of time, dogs evolved specifically to bond with humans in a way no other animal has.
Right, they didn't just evolve to look cuter to us or to become better hunting companions. Their actual internal wiring changed to prioritize this connection.
They evolved to bond with us through touch. If you look at early human-dog cohabitation, just imagine early humans sitting around a campfire.
Okay.
The proto-dogs, the wolves that first started interacting with us, would have had their own ways of comforting each other, right? Often through muzzle licking or full-body leaning.
Sure.
But over time, they learned to adapt their physical language to us. We essentially co-evolved.
It's basically the ultimate example of survival of the friendliest.
That's a perfect way to put it. The dogs that were better at reading human emotions, the dogs that were more inclined to offer a gentle, comforting touch rather than being aloof or aggressive, were the ones we kept closer to the fire.
We rewarded the empathetic ones.
Exactly. They were the ones we fed, the ones we protected, and the ones that successfully reproduced. Over countless generations, we actively, though perhaps unconsciously, selected for this exact trait.
So because of this deep historical wiring, your dog naturally feels comfort and safety just by being close to you.
Yes.
They are biologically predisposed to seek out that connection. It is quite literally in their DNA to physically connect with you when the emotional temperature in the room changes.
They are reading the room, sensing the cortisol spike when you sigh, and deploying millions of years of evolutionary programming to bring your baseline back down.
Which totally reframes the source material's final takeaway. The notes conclude with a very simple piece of advice.
What's that?
Well, when this happens, when that paw lands on your knee, you don't need to do anything.
Right.
You don't need to get up and grab a treat. You don't need to grab the leash. You don't even necessarily need to pet them back. You just let the paw stay.
Doing nothing is the action.
Yeah. The quiet moment of contact is the entire point. It is enough for both species. Words aren't needed to convey reassurance and calm when millions of years of evolution and a flood of oxytocin are doing the talking for you.
It's so true.
I mean, think about how much we overcomplicate our human relationships, constantly trying to find the exact right words to say when someone is stressed. And here's a creature that has mastered the art of emotional support with 0 words and one simple physical gesture.
It really is a privilege to be on the receiving end of an evolutionary adaptation that is entirely centered on empathy.
So let's bring it back to where we started. The next time you sit down on that couch, the next time you let out that heavy sigh after a brutal day, and you feel that gentle weight of a paw land on your hand, well, remember what is actually happening.
You aren't just being asked for a piece of your dinner.
No. You are experiencing an ancient, hormonally driven evolutionary gesture. You are engaging in a shared biological language that says, I'm here, I'm with you, and you are safe. It is a gesture that says more than words ever could.
So next time it happens, just take a breath and let the biology do its work.
But, understanding this biology actually leaves me with a new angle to ponder, something that builds on these notes but takes it a step further.
What's that?
Well, we just spent this time establishing that our dogs have spent thousands of years evolving to physically sync with our nervous systems. They're designed to offer comfort just by reading our size, acting as our biological mirrors.
Right, they're highly attuned barometers for our internal state.
So if our dogs are literal barometers for our stress, how might our increasingly digital, high-stress, fundamentally touch-deprived human lifestyles be impacting their well-being?
Oh, wow. That is a heavy thought.
Right. If their bodies are physically wired to absorb and soothe our stress, if they're constantly syncing up with our nervous systems, what is that shared biological Wi-Fi pumping into their bodies on our hardest, most anxious days?
Are they carrying the weight of our modern burnout?
Exactly. Are we overloading their systems? It is definitely something to think about the next time you sit down and let out that heavy sigh.